Alright, so trash talking has always been a staple of NFL football since the league's inception, and it's always been utilized as a great way to get under your opponent's skin and gain a competitive advantage when it goes right. But in this video, we're going to be looking at NFL trash talking moments that went horribly wrong. So in the 2001 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles decided to select wide receiver Freddie Mitchell with the 25th overall pick. He was a standout player in college and was expected to have a great career, and that didn't happen in the slightest. He was an absolute bum. But luckily for Freddie Mitchell, in 2004, he found himself on an incredible Eagles team, which gave him way more leeway to talk some trash to opponents and hide behind his better teammates. Now, after a dominant regular and postseason, the Eagles found themselves in the Super Bowl facing the Patriots, a team that had just won the Super Bowl the year prior. Basically, they do those pre-Super Bowl press conferences, and Freddie Mitchell was called up to the podium and was asked a question about the Patriots defense. And he said that he only knew the numbers of the Patriots defensive backs, and he also said he had something for veteran safety Rodney Harrison. Now, when you say something like that, calling out a guy like Rodney Harrison to the entire world before the Super Bowl, you better back it up. Now, it's safe to say the whole world heard Freddie Mitchell, a guy who had fewer career receiving yards than Mark Andrews did just last year, run his mouth so glaringly to an all-pro safety that was going to be blanketing his ass for the entire Super Bowl. And when I say the whole world heard Mitchell say this, unfortunately that also included Patriots head coach Bill Belichick, who was not happy with these remarks at all, but he wouldn't express himself until later. Anyway, with all that talk out of the way, Mitchell rode that momentum into the Super Bowl, where the Eagles lost to the Patriots and Freddie Mitchell caught one pass for 11 yards. One. And to just shove it down Freddie Mitchell's throat, after the Super Bowl, Bill Belichick is asked a question about the trash talk going into the game, and in regards to Freddie Mitchell, Belichick replies by saying, "All he does is talk. He's terrible, and you can print that. I was happy when he was in the game." That is absolutely ruthless. That is coming from arguably the greatest football mind we've ever seen, just straight up calling another professional athlete terrible. And after that year with the Eagles, Freddie Mitchell would end up getting cut and never played another down in the NFL again. Now, it's rare for guys like Freddie Mitchell, who have absolutely no credibility in the NFL, to talk trash. It's usually a guy who has some reputation, like Cowboys Hall of Famer Cliff Harris. Okay, in 1978, in Week 5 of the NFL season, the Cowboys played Washington. And for most of the game, it was just a classic 70s slugfest, with the only points for Washington being scored by future MVP kicker Mark Mosley, and the Cowboys only got one field goal and a safety late in the game. But that safety was completely intentional, as on one of the last plays of the game, Washington just had to burn some clock so the Cowboys couldn't get the ball back. So Joe Theismann, Washington's quarterback, went backwards and burned as much clock as possible, and eventually got a safety, giving the Cowboys 2 points, but locking up the victory for Washington. Anyways, Joe Theismann, after getting the safety and effectively ending the game, decided to prance around in the back of the end zone, holding up the ball and getting the home crowd into the game. Now, the Cowboys, who on the other side of the ball had already lost the game, did not appreciate this rare form of non-physical trash talk and were ready to show him exactly how they felt. So, multiple-time Pro Bowler Charlie Waters decides to charge Joe Theismann and knocks him onto the ground. And of course, after hitting the quarterback on the last play of the game, a fight broke out because the offensive linemen did not want their quarterback to get hurt. So, okay, there was a cheap shot on the quarterback on the last play of the game after the quarterback kinda did some trash talking a little bit, but like, what's the big deal here? Oh, just you wait. Now, as the Cowboys walked off the field defeated, the fans of Washington, who are already rowdy because of the fight, were deciding to throw beer bottles on the players as they were going into the locker room. Now, one bottle hit Charlie Waters and exploded on him, and he looked up and saw the fan who threw the bottle, who continued to taunt him straight to his face from the stands. Now, Charlie Waters decided to just ignore the fan and keep going, but Cliff Harris, who saw this from afar, had no intention of walking away and wanted to jump into the crowds and absolutely dismember the fan that had threw bottles of beer at his teammate. So now a Hall of Fame defensive back and a Pro Bowl defensive back for the Cowboys decide to jump into the crowds and start fighting the fans of Washington. They jumped into the crowds and just started throwing punches at everything they could, trying trying to get as much blood on their hands as possible, doing as much damage as they could until security guards dragged them out of the stands. Keep in mind that all of this happened because apparently Joe Theismann had just raised the football in the air in the last play of the game. And after all of this settled down, weeks later the NFL decided that there would be no fines, no suspensions, or no repercussions at all from this incident. Absolutely insane. And unfortunately for all of us, there were no cameras that were able to film this incident live, so we all missed out on a historic fight. But luckily in the new era, absolutely every minute detail gets caught on film. So in the 2012 wildcard game, we have another common denominator as Washington took on the Seattle Seahawks. And the main headline of this game was the rookie quarterback battle between Russell Wilson and Robert Griffin III, but a smaller narrative going into this game was the fact that Richard Sherman was going to play, because prior to this game, Richard Sherman was almost suspended on apparent drug use. But Richard Sherman was just happy to be out there on the field, and maybe a little too excited, because early on into the game, he was getting straight into his antics, getting under Washington's skin very easily. And throughout the game, Richard Sherman was doing a really good job of locking down the receivers he was guarding, and Trent Williams, an O-lineman, never really made contact with Sherman throughout the game, but he did hear his trash talking and did not take likeness to it at all. So, after he let him know in the middle of the game, Richard Sherman decided to bark back at him, and now Trent Williams and Richard Sherman were screaming at each other during the middle of the game, although the two would never even touch each other on the field. Anyway, during the game, Robert Griffin III injured himself and was never the same player, and now Washington went home as losers, eliminated from the playoffs, which led to the aftermath of Trent Williams confronting Richard Sherman at the end of the game. Trent Williams came with his helmet on, looking scary as hell, coming over to Richard Sherman and demanded he set the record straight. Now, Trent Williams was not going to have any of Richard Sherman's bullshit this time, so he came over and literally said, "I'm gonna punch you in the face," and Sherman basically said, "You won't," and then he did. So, yeah. Although Seattle did walk out with the win, Trent Williams pretty much did all he could do, and Richard Sherman got what was coming to him for sure. But it's one thing to talk trash and back it up yourself, rather than talking trash against someone you're not even gonna play against at all. So in the 2017 season, the Texans were looking really good with Deshaun Watson under helm, but as the season progressed and Deshaun Watson went down with an injury, things fell apart really quickly. So now with the Texans at 4-8 going into a Week 13 game against the division rival Titans, they had a chance to prove themselves as a team that wasn't just going to be a pushover. Now, at this time, the Texans were supposed to be led by former #1 overall pick Jadeveon Clowney, but that wasn't really working out too well for them, and they had a new guy on the block in DeAndre Hopkins. Anyway, late in the game, with Clowney on the sideline, he looks over and sees DeAndre Hopkins being guarded by a cornerback who Clowney very clearly pointed out had no idea who he was. Now, little did Clowney know that not only was that supposed guy he'd never heard of actually pretty good at football, he was fully capable of guarding DeAndre Hopkins on this next play at least. Now, what Jadeveon also failed to take into consideration is the Texans quarterback for this game was Tom Savage. Yeah, Tom Savage. And if you don't know who that is, that's completely fine. Just imagine like an old Brian Hoyer. And that's it. So with that being said, this football was probably not getting to D-Hop anyways because of the quarterback play, but that didn't stop Clowney from speaking his mind and letting the defenders know exactly what he thought was going to happen on this next play. Anyway, Tom Savage winds up and throws a horrendous pass right past DeAndre Hopkins and into the hands of some no-name cornerback. And yeah. On that day, Jadeveon Clowney learned a lesson. Never trust Tom Savage. But if you enjoyed this video, then like and comment because it really helps the channel a lot. And if you enjoyed this video, then watch this video right here on the worst Super Bowl winners of all time. You'll love it, trust me. Anyways, until next time.